Thank you, Amelia. That was amazing as ever. And so our next speaker is stepping in for Cristina Sola Savini from the New Debout movement in France, who can't make it today, is Thomas Seibert, who's a philosopher, activist. He's a member of Democracy in Europe movement. He's a member of the autonomous left. He's close to Die Linke in Germany, and he's in a think tank with left Greens and Social Democrats. So according to this, you're exactly the kind of pluralist that another Europe is possible, Thomas. So congratulations.
Yeah. Hello, I'm happy to be here. It's actually the first time that I'm in one room together with so many British left. Have never made this experience before. And the point for being so pluralist as I am is that I was an activist of the autonomous left for about 40 years, which enables me to then have contact also to other people. And this is what I was doing the last years. Now I'm jumping in for Christina, who unfortunately couldn't come. And I will start with the German situation and with the problem we face, just to open it up, because I think the problem we are facing is similar to the problems we are facing all over Europe. The first thing I don't want to talk too much on is that we have the big coalition for years now. And the point is that the big coalition will coming to an end probably by the end of 2017, and it's at the moment not at all clear what kind of end this will be. It could be a right, but it could be also other one. The other thing is that we also have a huge right turn too in Germany. We have a right-wing party now for about 15%. We didn't have that for a very, very long time. We have rightist movements on the streets which are asking for democracy and people's power. That's what they are doing. And also we have a violent racist mob which creates attacks in an amount we hadn't as long as I can remember, only in the last year. But on the other hand, this is a one-sided story to tell, and I think this is similar to the situations elsewhere. We had, during the last year, we had a movement constantly backed by voluntarily activists, which is called the so-called Welcome Movement, which enabled the crossing of borders of thousands and thousands of people in the last year. And this is also unseen, and it was completely unexpected, and it was not at all a kind of movement we are used to. It was really a popular movement, and it was a left movement, but not a movement made up by leftists. There were leftists inside, but they are not the majority of these people. This is the one thing where I can say it's a one-sided story to say it's only a right turn. The other point is that we have deliberately and constantly for years now a kind of a third of the electorate in Germany which is in favor for a center-left turn of politics. This is also deliberately since years the case. So therefore I wouldn't say we are suffering a right turn only, but we are experiencing an open situation, which we also hadn't for years, because for years the situation in Germany was clear. It was something like center-left, center-right, which makes no difference at all. So now the situation is really open. And the problem inside of this situation is we have a right wing and a right turn, which is articulated politically by a political party, by constant demonstrations, by a violent mob, and by attention of the media. The media is pushing, like you said concerning the referendum, the media is pushing all the right turn. And we have a left side, which, just to give one example, all the demonstrations of the rightist movement of the last year were countered by demonstrations which have been larger in numbers, but were not noticed by the media. And that is not only because of the media are bad, that is because of this kind of left wing of our society is not articulated, whereas the right is articulated. That is the problem, and I don't think that this is only a German problem. I think it's all over Europe the same case, and it came when you were saying we cannot only go to the people and say to them, well, join us. That's the point. Also, what we are offering, coming from our leftist history, is not attractive, is not the answer for that what the people are asking for. So that is the problem we are facing. Yeah? There is a kind, that is what the good discussions we have at the moment in Germany is always that we're saying there is a kind of virtual new left majority in our country. New means it is a majority which is raising at the same moment the social question, the ecological question, feminist question, anti-racist question, democracy question in a pro and pan-European perspective, and if in defense of those who have crossed the borders and will continue to cross the borders. The point is of this newness is up to now it's just a kind of patchwork. It's just a kind of crossover. The way I told it to you, we have social question, ecological question, and feminist question, and anti-racist, blah, blah, blah. That is not a common project. It's just a patchwork. Yeah? That is the main work to be done. We have to create a common political project which must not only be an addition of all these kind of social question, ecological question. It must be more of these. Yeah? And that brings me back to the question, why is the left, in tendency, the left majority of society not articulated, whereas the right is articulated? And that was mentioned several times here. That is the question for, we have this kind of crisis of representation. In left perspective, that means we have a crisis of the center-left since years, but we also have a crisis of the left political party, including Die Linke, which is at the moment instead of creating an alternative when we have elections next year, is probably like the British left, fallen into a struggle between Lexit and not Lexit. Same like that. Yeah? So that is the one thing. We have a crisis of representation which includes the forms of representation the left is offering. Yeah? But also, and that also I think is a common problem and not only a German problem. And that is the point when you are saying we cannot only ask the people to join us. We have a crisis of activism. And therefore we cannot just say, well, we have a crisis of representation, so let's move over and counter that by activism. No, that is not the case. If I look to this virtual left majority in German society, a huge layer of these people are not at all willing to become activists, and not because they are lazy or petit bourgeois or whatever. It's not their point. Yeah? They don't want to become activists, and especially they don't want to become this form of what is a leftist activism. That is not attractive. Yeah? And therefore we definitely will not have something like a general strike or so. That will not be the case. So, and that brings me back, in order also to end, that brings me back to the point Srečko was saying before. Additionally to the central point that we have to go out and bring, as you were saying, political ideas outside, which means to create a common political project which is not only just addition of social and ecological and feminist and anti-racist. It has to be a common project, which means a project which is willing and able to change. And that is something different as just bringing the things together. And besides of that, the point is not to counter representation by activism, but to find out what would be a different way of activism. And our experience with the Welcome movement of the last year is one huge and massive and really attractive experience we had. But that was, as I told before, it was a left movement, but not a movement of leftists. And that was its strength. and its favor. And that is what we have to think about, what we have to learn, what we have to draw the consequences out of. And we have to think about different representation, because a lot of those, a huge part of those people who would be in favor for a left turn, I say it again, don't want to become activists. They don't want to activate themselves politically. They are looking for different forms and different content and tendencies and projects of representation. So we have to solve these three problems: common project, different forms of activism, different forms of representation. That only can be done has to be done at once, yeah? And that is the thing where we, I hope so, already are engaged in, but where we have to learn. The answers are not clear on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's clear we have not too much time. I think we have time for the next 2 or 3 years will be decisive, yeah? And that includes the German elections, the French elections, the outcome of the Spanish crisis, and the outcome of the Brexit, the way it will be. So to end with, it means we have to work on all the levels, as Srečko was saying, from the local level, national level, transnational level, here, horizontal, and what's the other?
Vertical.
Vertical, thank you. Finish, I stop with that.